Welcome back to the channel. My name is Nate. I own a custom integration company, meaning I help people implement technology into their homes and businesses. For those of you that are new here, we work with all sorts of products, specifically in the AV, networking, and surveillance world. We primarily use Ubiquiti, Sonos, Lutron, and similar types products throughout our builds. In today's video, we have the trim portion of a video I previously filmed where we pre-wired for a small wireless home theater setup, as well as distributed audio throughout a basement renovation. So you will see us put up a 100-inch display tied with a Sonos Arc, 2 rear channels powered by a Sonos Amp, and then distributed audio throughout the rest of the basement. This client already had a bunch of Sonos equipment throughout the rest of the house, so it made it an incredibly easy deployment for them to jump into. Now for this particular video, we didn't use any Ubiquiti equipment. However, if you've seen our videos in the past, if you're looking for Ubiquiti equipment, make sure you check that link in our description. We do have an affiliate code and it helps our channel out a ton. And as always, if you are looking for help for designing your own AV system, whether it is lighting, distributed audio networks, you can check out our website where we do have links available for design services. All right, so first thing that we do on any type of site like this is we're going to mount the rack. This rack, you have seen us use it in the past. It is a Tech Mojo, I want to say this is a 6U rack, might be 9U, but just a small deployment. Something like this where it's just going to be Sonos amps and a power distribution unit in it. We don't need a big rack. We didn't handle any of the network for this house, so we obviously don't have any Ubiquiti equipment. There's no routers, no switch, anything like that going in here. The client did have very good Wi-Fi. He was using an Eero mesh system, so we ended up running the amps just off of Wi-Fi, which is working perfectly fine. Next thing you see there is Pat is going through and setting up the location of the TV. Now with a 100-inch display, we basically use a TV distance calculator based on where your seating position is going to be to figure out the center height of the display, as well as height off the ground and how far back you should be. This TV ended up being roughly 50 inches to the center of the TV, and I think it was 24 inches off the ground for the optimal viewing on a 100-inch display. In the previous video, you watched us wire all these locations and using the new construction brackets, which is that black, green, they come in all sorts of different colors, but a plastic ring that we span the joists with, which allow the drywall guys to come in and just roto zip out a hole. So when we come back on site to trim, there is just a nice clean cut hole. All we have to do is cut our zip tie where our cable was, pull the cable down, strip it with your correct size depending on what cable you pulled. We typically use 16.2 for all of our speaker deployments, and then terminate it into the speaker following your positive and negative. All the speakers, like I've shown in the past in other videos, the ones that we use typically have dogs, which is just a tiny screw on the front of the face that you're going to turn with a drill that will release the dog and cinch it down to the top of the drywall. The grills on these Sonos speakers are magnetic, as with the majority of any in-ceiling speaker or on-wall speaker that you are going to utilize these days. They're all going to be magnetic. They are paintable as well. So in his scenario, he had a white ceiling. The trim for the speakers are white and gray. It doesn't really they blend in very well. Some people like the offset of the gray, but you could paint them white if you needed to. We actually use a company for a lot of our speakers called Origin Acoustics, where we can submit whatever the ceiling is going to be made of. So like for an example, you have a V-groove or a tongue and groove ceiling. We can send in a photo of the specific wood pattern in that area, and they will laser print onto our speaker grills to make them blend in seamlessly. It's a very cool process. So here we are about to install the TV now that the mount is up. The client purchased this TV on their own. We did not supply this. It is a 100-inch TCL. I don't remember the model specifically off the top of my head now as I am recording this audio, but I will make sure it's in the description below. As far as the mount goes, we really like this Sonos mount. It's an extendable, so the arms on it extend out further to accommodate a 100-inch display. The number one thing you got to do when you're doing a TV this large, on a smaller TV, you can definitely get away with doing just snap toggles for a lot of the spaces. So like we install a lot of Samsung frame TVs. That is a perfectly fine TV to utilize snap toggles, but something this large, you want to make sure you're catching multiple studs. This construction in the basement was steel studs, so we are using toggles no matter what in something like that, but into a steel stud makes a huge difference. So here we're just going through and installing the rest of the speakers. We ended up with multiple different zones. So we have the gym zone, the theater zone, and the bar zone. The really nice thing with the Sonos Arc, if you use an Arc underneath a TV, or you can do this with the Beam as well, but we primarily sell it with the Arc. You can take rear channels and use passively powered speakers in the ceiling, and if you power them with a Sonos amp, in the Sonos app, you can go ahead and group those together. So they will be treated exclusively as rear zones to that Arc, and it creates a 5.1 surround sound once you add a sub in with it, which is what we ended up doing here. It does a really good job of allowing you to not have to have the Era 100 or the Era 300 as your rear channels. So it gets it up out of the way. Obviously it doesn't need AC power. And then it allows you to distribute TV audio to any other zones in the house that are tied in with the Sonos system. So for example, this client has zones upstairs with like the Sonos Move. He has another Arc upstairs. He has a couple of the Roams. He can play the TV audio out of those additional zones that's playing on the TV audio downstairs. So now here, I'm just going in and I am labeling every cable based on our labeling scheme that we have from when we pre-wired it, which I talked about in the last video. And then I'm trimming all the cables to right length. I always make sure we put a service loop in the back just in case we ever have to move something down the road. On a bigger rack, we would typically use a lace bar here so that we can make every cable right length, but something smaller like this, it's really not required, where it's just 4 Sonos amps going into the small rack. I did realize that I called it a TCL TV previously in this voiceover. It is a Hisense TV. I'll find the model and I'll put it in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're utilizing Sonos, it's a great system. We sell a lot of it and we do encourage people using it. If you have questions, please drop a comment. I appreciate you checking out our video if you made it this far, and I will see you next week.